the imposing headquarters of Pierce Innovations, in a modern building that dominates the New York skyline, billionaire CEO Alexander Pierce watched intently as his employees gathered in the main boardroom. His gaze was cold, calculating, like that of a strategist who plans each move with surgical precision. The room, normally vibrant with lively conversation, was now filled with tense silence. Everyone knew something was about to happen, but no one could imagine what Alexander had in mind. "Today, I will launch a challenge that will define the future of this company," said Alexander, his voice firm and echoing off the glass walls. Next to him rested a brown leather briefcase. With a calm gesture, he opened it, revealing stacks of money. Perfectly organized $100 bills, $10 million in cash, a small fortune that could change the life of anyone in that room. The eyes of Emily Adams, one of the top executives, widened when she saw the amount. She tried to hide her surprise. She felt her heart race. Her mind immediately went to her young daughter, Lily, and the bills piling up on her kitchen table. Emily had endured a painful divorce, a marriage that had ended with broken promises and shattered dreams. She was raising her daughter alone, fighting every day to give Lily a better life than her own. That amount of money was enough to pay off all their debts, provide for Lily's education, and give them the security Emily always wanted. "You have a week," Alexander continued, voice cool and controlled. "1 week to decide whether to take this money or not. There will be no trials, there will be no immediate repercussions. Whoever takes it, gets it, and whoever doesn't get it. What I want to see is who here resists the temptation. This test will reveal who you really are." Emily felt a lump form in her throat. Pressure of the decision weighed like an anchor on his chest. She knew she was a woman of integrity who had always been proud of her ethics and morals. But there, faced with that $10 million, his resolve wavered. What was right? What was needed? As a mother, her first instinct was to protect her daughter, to make sure Lily lacked nothing. But as a professional, as someone who dedicated years to Pierce Innovations, she knew that giving in to temptation could mean betraying her principles. As Emily looked around, she realized she was not alone in her dilemma. The expression of everyone in the room varied between surprise, eagerness, and profound uncertainty. The environment, previously corporate tranquility, was now charged with tension. Every second seemed to drag by as the minds present evaluated their options. When the meeting ended and the employees began to disperse, Emily remained still, her eyes fixed on the table where the money had been displayed. Alexander approached her, his gaze intense but revealing no emotion. "Emily," said softly, "this week will show you more about yourself than any other time in your life. Think carefully, because what you choose will shape your future in ways you can't even imagine." His words echoed in Emily's mind, reverberating in every corner of her consciousness. As he left the room, his legs felt like they were made of lead. All she wanted was to go home, hug her daughter, and forget for a moment the decision that was before her. But there was no escape. During that week, she would be tested in ways she never imagined. The way back home was slow torture. The lights of New York City blurred before Emily's eyes, and her mind was a chaos of conflicting thoughts. Upon entering her modest apartment, she was greeted by Lily's innocent smile, who ran into her arms. "Mommy, are you okay?" asked Lily, voice sweet and full of concern. Emily forced a smile and hugged her tightly. "I am, honey, I'm just thinking about some things." But inside, Emily felt like she was falling apart. The weight of the decision she would have to make in the next few days seemed to crush her. It was a battle between survival and morality, between what was right for his career and what was right for his family. And the worst of all was knowing that, whatever her choice, there would be consequence, not just for her, but for the person she loved most in this world, her daughter. The days that followed were suffocating. Emily felt like she was in a minefield, where every step she took could trigger an emotional outburst. In the office, the atmosphere had changed drastically. Where there had once been casual conversations and discreet laughter, now there were only furtive glances and suspicious whispers. Emily tried to stay focused on her work, but the weight of the dilemma followed her like a shadow, darkening her every thought. On Monday, she was taken aback when she saw one of her colleagues, Michael, walk out of the meeting room with an unreadable look on his face. He was known for his relentless ambition, always willing to do whatever was necessary to advance his career. When his eyes met Emily's, he just gave a weak smile and quickly walked away. Did he take the money? Emily wondered, feeling a chill run up her spine. The thought that others were giving in to temptation made her question her own beliefs even more. She couldn't get the image of Michael with that strange smile out of her head. In the middle of the afternoon, while Emily was alone in her office, her phone rang. It was a call she hadn't expected, one that made her heart race. Her ex-husband Daniel was on the line, and his voice was thick with tension. "Emily, we need to talk," he began. Bluntly, "I'm in trouble. Things are complicated with finances, and I'm about to lose everything. I need help." Emily closed her eyes, feeling a wave of despair. The last thing she wanted was to talk to Daniel, especially at a time like this. But before I could respond, he continued, his voice now lower, almost pleading. "I know you're in a difficult position, but I heard rumors about this test at your company. I heard there's a huge amount of money involved, Emily. Think about our daughter. If you can get this money, we can secure a future for Lily. You don't need to tell anyone. Who will know?" That insinuation hit her like a knife. Emily stood up from her chair, feeling the ground shake beneath her feet. "Daniel, you have no idea what you're asking for," she whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. "This isn't about easy money. It's about who I am. I can't just throw everything away, risk my career, my integrity." "Integrity doesn't put food on the table, Emily," Daniel interrupted, frustration evident in his tone. "You've always been so strict about these things, but now it's not just about you. It's about our daughter. For once in your life, be practical." The call ended with thud, leaving Emily alone, shaking and with tears in her eyes. She knew Daniel was desperate, but using Lily as emotional leverage was more than she could handle. Emily felt a mixture of anger and pain that left her breathless, as if she were being suffocated by an invisible force. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in bed, while Daniel's words echoed in her mind. The image of his daughter smiling, innocent, and oblivious to all the turmoil was a constant torment. As a mother, she wanted to do what was best for Lily. "I wanted to protect her from all harm, to ensure that she never went through the same difficulties she had faced. But at the same time, I knew that giving in to temptation was not the answer." The idea of compromising everything she believed in, of betraying the trust she had in herself, was unbearable. When dawn finally arrived, Emily felt exhausted, as if she had run an emotional marathon. At work, the environment was increasingly heavy. Smiles among colleagues were rare, and greetings were brief. There was a palpable tension, a feeling that everyone was waiting for the outcome of this cruel test. Emily realized she was not alone in her agony. During a coffee break, he met with Sarah, a longtime friend at the company, who also seemed to be on the verge of a breakdown. "This is tearing us apart, Emily," Sarah confessed, her voice shaking as she looked down at the coffee cup in her hands. "I don't know who to trust anymore. Michael, he told me he was going to take the money and that if I didn't do the same, I would be an idiot. What do I do? I have my family to take care of." Emily felt a tightness in her chest when she heard Sarah's words. Being her friend so dejected and desperate only intensified her own anguish. The choice between what was right and what was necessary was tearing them all apart inside, and Emily felt like she was on the edge of an abyss, not knowing how to stop herself from falling. That night, as she walked home, Emily was consumed by a growing sense of despair. She was being pulled in every direction, and each step felt heavier than the last. The city lights flickered around her, but she barely noticed them, lost in her thoughts. When she finally arrived at her apartment, she was greeted by Lily, who ran into her arms with a beaming smile. Emily held her tightly, feeling her daughter's warmth like an anchor amidst the chaos. Inside, the battle still raged. Emily knew that time was running out, and that she would soon have to make a decision. The question that tormented her was the same: how to choose between what was right and what seemed necessary. And above all, how would I get out of this test without losing everything I valued most? The days passed in a blur of uncertainty and fear. Emily felt like she was walking on broken glass. Every decision, every thought, Every interaction felt like a threat to her sanity. The week was approaching its end, and with it, the weight of the decision became unbearable. On Friday, the office was quieter than ever. Everyone knew the deadline was running out, and the pressure was palpable. Emily couldn't get the image of Lily out of her head, playing innocently as the world around her fell apart. She knew she needed to do something, but she was terrified of the possible consequences of any choice. It was then that, at the end of the day, Emily received an unexpected email. It was by Alexander Pierce. Emily's heart raced as she read the few words on the screen. "Emily, I need you in my office now." She felt her blood run cold. What did he want? Had I discovered something? With shaking hands, Emily closed her laptop and headed to the CEO's office, trying to stay calm. Each step felt like an eternity, and the hallway leading to Alexander's room seemed longer than ever. When he arrived, Alexander was sitting behind his huge mahogany desk, his eyes fixed on the view of the city through the glass windows. He didn't immediately turn around when Emily entered, which only increased his anxiety. Finally, he spoke, without taking his eyes off the landscape. "Emily," his voice was low, almost a whisper, but carried with an intensity that made her shiver. "You have been one of my most loyal executives, someone I have always been able to trust. But this week, something changed." Emily felt her heart sink. "Mr. Pierce," he began, but was interrupted. "I know about your situation," Alexander said, finally turning to face her. His gaze was penetrating, and Emily felt naked, as if he could see all her doubts and fears.
His daughter, the divorce, the financial difficulties. I know this week has been particularly difficult for you. His words hit her like a blow. Emily struggled to maintain her composure, but tears were already forming in her eyes. "I never wanted it to interfere with my work," she murmured, her voice cracking. "But I don't know what else to do. Every choice feels wrong." Alexander stood up and walked slowly to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "This test," he began, with a reflective tone, "wasn't just about money. It was about character, about who you really are when no one is looking. And I wanted to see how far temptation could take each of you." Emily bit her lip, trying to control the tears that were now flowing freely. "I thought about taking the money," she confessed, her voice breaking. "Not for me, but for Lily. I want to give her a better life. I want to make sure she doesn't have to go through the hardships I went through. But at the same time, I knew that if I did that, I would be betraying everything I believe in. I feel trapped, like there is no way out." Alexander turned to her, his gaze now softened by unexpected understanding. "Emily, we all have our weak moments. Nobody is perfect. I didn't expect you to get through this without feeling tempted. The question is not whether you thought about taking the money, but what you decided in the end." Emily felt a mix of relief and confusion. "So what should I do? How do I know which is the right choice?" Alexander walked over to her, placing a firm but gentle hand on her shoulder. "The right choice, Emily, is the one you can live with. The one that, at the end of the day, allows you to look in the mirror and feel at peace with the person you see. Whatever you decide, it should be something you can defend for yourself and for your daughter." His words reverberated in Emily's heart. She knew in that moment that the decision was hers and hers alone. No one could make that choice for her, not even Alexander Pierce. And whatever the outcome, it would have to be something she could carry with her for the rest of her life. With a shake of her head, Emily wiped away her tears and straightened up. "Thank you, Mr. Pierce," she said with renewed determination. "I know what I need to do." When she left the office, she felt lighter, but at the same time, the weight of responsibility still hung on her shoulders. She knew that the next day, the world would find out who she really was. And most importantly, she would discover for herself whether she was strong enough to resist the temptation, or whether she would succumb to the desire to protect her daughter at any cost. That night, Emily returned home to find Lily sleeping peacefully. As she lay down next to her daughter, she whispered, almost like a promise, "I will do what is right, my dear, for your future and ours." The next morning, Emily woke up with a mix of determination and fear. Today was the day that everything would be revealed, the day that the masks would finally fall. She stood up slowly, trying to calm the turmoil in her chest. "I knew that no matter what happened, I needed to face what was coming with courage. As she got ready for work, Lily watched her from the kitchen table, drawing with her colored pencils. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily's soft voice brought her out of her thoughts. Emily turned around, forcing a smile. "I am, my love." "Just a little tired," she replied, trying to hide the restlessness that consumed her. "But it's going to be okay." Upon arriving at the office, the tension was almost palpable. Everyone seemed to be on the verge of breaking down, the furtive glances and low murmurs revealing the anxiety gripping the team. Emily realized she was not alone in her anguish. Everyone there was dealing with their own demons. Just before lunchtime, Alexander Pierce called a meeting. All the executives were called into the conference room, and Emily felt her heart skip a beat as she joined the others. When he entered, he saw that the room was full, but incredibly quiet. Alexander was at the head of the table, his face serious but calm. Emily sat up, trying to ignore Michael's piercing gaze, who seemed more restless than ever. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alexander began, his firm voice echoing through the room. "You have been through an extremely challenging week. This test was more than a simple provocation. It was an assessment of who you are as people, as professionals, and as leaders." Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew this was the moment everything would come to a head. Alexander paused, letting silence fill the room before continuing. "Today, we will reveal the results. Those who gave in to temptation and those who remained firm in their convictions. But before that, I want to hear from you. I want to know what went through their minds this week, what they felt and what they decided." Emily's heart was beating so loudly that she was afraid others might hear it. She knew she needed to speak, but the words felt stuck in her throat. To his surprise, Michael was the first to speak up. He stood up, eyes fixed on Alexander. "I took the money," he confessed, his voice cold but resolute. "And I don't regret it. For me, this test was an opportunity to show that I am capable of making difficult decisions, of doing what is necessary to move forward. In the business world, there is no room for weakness." His words fell like a weight on the room, and Emily felt a knot form in her stomach. Michael's audacity, his lack of remorse, left her in shock. Alexander just nodded without any expression of surprise. "I see," he said simply, before turning his gaze to Emily. "What about you, Emily? What did you decide?" All eyes turned to her, and Emily felt the pressure like an invisible hand squeezing her chest. She stood up, trying to find her voice. "I thought I'd take the money," she began, feeling tears threatening to spill over. "I thought about how this could help my daughter, how it could solve so many problems I face, but in the end, I couldn't do it." The room was absolutely silent. Emily continued, her voice shaking with the emotion that overwhelmed her. "I knew that if I took the money, I would be betraying everything I believe in. I would be teaching my daughter that the end justifies the means, that our values can be sold for a price, and that's something I couldn't live with." The tears finally escaped, and Emily quickly wiped them away, trying to regain her composure. "I have decided to stay true to who I am, even if it means continuing to fight, because in the end, I believe this is the only way to truly win." Alexander watched her for a long moment, and Emily felt a strange calm settle in her. She had spoken her truth, and now all she had to do was wait. After a silence that seemed endless, Alexander stood up and walked over to Emily. He placed a hand on her shoulder, her eyes locked with his. "Emily," he said, his voice firm and full of respect, "you have demonstrated courage that many do not possess. And that's exactly what I look for in my leaders, integrity, even in the face of the greatest temptations." Emily felt such profound relief that she almost collapsed. But at the same time, I knew there was still a lot to be revealed. What would happen to Michael? And what about others who, like him, gave in to temptation? Alexander turned to the group. "The test you faced was not about money, it was about character. And today, I will make decisions based not on who was the smartest, but on who proved to be trustworthy." The suspense in the room was overwhelming. Emily knew that no matter what happened, she had done what was right. But the consequences of everyone's actions were yet to be revealed. As the clock on the wall ticked down the minutes, each second seemed to carry the weight of the fate of everyone in the room. The tension in the conference room was almost unbearable. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Alexander Pierce, who was still silent after his impactful words. Emily felt the weight of the approaching decision. What happened next could change everything, not just for her, but for every person in that room. Alexander returned to his